Hey guys, this is Mitch with Fine Point CGI, and today we're going to talk about how to create a pick-upable object inside of Godot. So what we're going to do is, much like we did in our last video on this little series, is we basically created a mana system that allowed us to dash and it would reduce our mana. And it kind of regenerates slowly, but it would be good to have a pick-upable object to increase our mana all at once, right? So in this video, we're going to go through the process of creating that. So we're going to create our little potion object. We're going to code our potion object and make it kind of extendable. And then we are going to go ahead and set up our scene so that way we can have little bars on our screen to show our stamina going down or going up. So that's what I have in store for you guys today. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the next major thing we need to do is we need to create a potion to restore the magic really quickly. So right now we don't have an inventory or anything like that, so we're not going to actually be able to build a full inventory system, but what we can do is we can at least make an object that's pick-upable, and that's what we're going to achieve right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on our game manager, we'll add in a child node, and we're going to make a node 2D object, and we're going to call this magic potion. All right, now we're going to right click this. We're going to add in a child 2D. We are going to add in a area 2D. And we're going to right click as well, add in another child node and add in a collision shape 2D right here. And we're going to go ahead and add that in. And we're going to make that shape a circle shape. So if we focus in on it, you can see here's our little shape. Now we're going to right click on our magic potion. We're going to add in a child node. We're going to add in a sprite. And I don't need it to animate through the animated sprite node. I'm going to animate it through the animation editor or through like an animation player. So we can just go ahead and go through it that way. Now for the sprite, I actually have a sprite with that Metroidvania platformer. If you actually go in there, you go into your miscellaneous sprites, you can see they have an antidote to potion. I'm going to use that as my sprite, considering I don't actually... Maybe this fancy orb would do. This looks nice. Let's go with the fancy orb, actually. I mean, I don't know if it's not really a potion, but it'll work. So we'll go ahead and drag that fancy orb in. No, I'll go with the antidote. So we'll go ahead and drag in the antidote. There we go, nice and fancy. So if we click on that and we go to our import settings, let's change that to a 2D pixel. Get rid of that nasty aliasing thing it's doing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in an animation player here. And we are going to first animate this so that it can move. So what we'll do is we're going to right click, add in a child node, and we're going to say node 2D. We'll take both these two and put them underneath here. So that way when this moves, it moves all of it, including my collision. And we're going to grab our animation player and we're going to add in a new animation and we're going to call it bounce. And then what we're going to do is we are going to grab our node 2D and we are going to go ahead and add in a keyframe here and we will use Bezier curves. So I know I'm running pretty quick through these, but basically what we did was we threw in an animation player, we threw it all under a node 2D, that way we could properly animate it moving up and down so it can take all of the objects. So if I move this, you'll see it takes the whole thing instead of doing it via like the area 2D, which would just move the area 2D, or the sprite, which would just move the sprite. It's going to move all of it together. And then I went over here and I clicked on this little button here, and that basically throws in a keyframe so that I can start my animation. So we're going to set this to, I don't know, a 3-second animation, let's say. We're going to drag this to about halfway through, and we're going to go up. Whoops, I said up. We're going to go up, I don't know, about 3, we'll say. So -3, it looks like. And then we'll kick in a keyframe, and we'll come back here, set this back to 0, and kick in another keyframe. So now, if we run this, you'll see it's moving really slowly. I actually think maybe we should go down to a 2-second animation instead. So let's drag this back. Same thing with this one. Drag this to 1, drag this to 1. That's still not quick enough for me, so let's cut it down by another second or so. Or by, I guess, a little bit more. Let's see if that feels better. That's too quick. So we'll go with 1.5. I think 1.5 will be a good middle ground for them all. So we'll just drag that in there. There we go. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and click on this little button right here, which will loop our animation. So now if we hit play. Awesome. Simple enough, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to open up my Bezier curves here. I'm going to zoom in on them real quick. Let me see. Actually, I think, you know what? I think they're probably okay. If you use the middle mouse button, you can pan like this. So you can actually pan around. And what I was thinking of doing was I was thinking of messing with position Y and maybe just kind of stacking it down like this to make it more linear and then having it kind of smoothly transition down. I'm curious if that's going to make it feel better. Yeah, now it feels more like it's bouncing, whereas before, see how it's a smooth gradient versus a bouncing gradient? I think I prefer the bouncing gradient over the two, so we'll go with that. So if I drag this back to something like this, to this, it gives a little bit more angular velocity, a little bit more bounciness to it. So I'll stick with that. And if you like the other way, go ahead and do it that way. But I thought it'd be cool to show you guys kind of how this graph editor works. So we'll go ahead and close that. And then what we're going to do is we need to go ahead and code all of this. So we're going to right click on here, attach a script. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to do a little bit of object inheritance here. So there's going to be some fanciness that we're going to be doing. So I'm actually going to right click over here. Or not right click. I'm going to go ahead and add in a new file. And I'm just going to call this potion. Or we'll call it pickupable, I guess. And I'm doing this, whoops, I needed to make that a .cs file. .cs, and I'm going to grab my magic potion. I'm going to Control A, Control C. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. And I'm going to say pickupable. I don't need a ready node. I'm good. And I'm just going to have this as a thing that exists. And the reason why is because if you use class inheritance, you can do a lot of really fancy tricks that allows you to inherit from this class, and then you can use things in a generic way. And I know that that's kind of difficult to understand, but think of it kind of like, if I'm looking at an object, I can say, is this object a pickupable? It could be a potion, it could be a weapon, it could be anything. But as long as it inherits from pickupable, I can generically say this is a pickupable object. And that will give you a lot of flexibility. So if we go to magic potion and instead of node 2D, we say pickupable, that will allow us to have that little bit of flexibility that I was talking to you guys about a little bit ago. So from here, let's go ahead and add in a public float, and we'll say magic gain amount is equal to, and we'll say 20. I think 20 is a good number. It's a lot, but it's a good number. And we'll cast that as a float to make sure it's a float. And what we're going to do is first we need to animate our object. So let's get that going. So we'll say get node animation player, and we're going to say quote, and let's look at our project structure here. And it looks like our animation player is right here, so it's perfect. That's exactly where we need it to be. So we'll say animation player. And then what we need to do is we need to hook up some signals here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do some linking in here. So we'll come over here we need to make this its own scene, because if not, then all of this will be for naught when we switch it over to its own scene. So let's go ahead and right click this, save our branch as a scene, and say magicpotion.tscn. Let's go inside of there and now make our links. It's going to make things easier in the future. So if we go to node and we'll go to body entered, we'll right click that, connect, and connect it to my magic potion. Make sure that you copy this receiver method, so that way we can make it, hit connect, and then let's say public void on bodied enter. We'll say object body. We'll go ahead and pass that in here. And then we need to go ahead and also do the same thing on area 2D body exit. So we'll click on area 2D, body exit, connect, and then we'll go ahead and copy this, connect it. It'll open up Visual Studio Code. We'll say public void on 2D body exit, object body, and then we're gonna be perfect, right? This works great. So now from here, we need to show and hide our text element. Now we don't actually have a text element here, so let's go ahead and add one. So we're gonna right click, add a child node, rich text label, and let's go ahead and set it as X. Seems like we're going for like a lower keyboard binding thing here, so this works perfectly for us. So from here, now that we have this, let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and then let's go ahead and say get node, rich text label, quote, node 2D slash rich text label, and then we'll say dot show, because we want to show it when people enter it. And then we also want to do the same thing here, so just go ahead and Control C, Control V, dot hide. Awesome. So that'll show and hide our rich text label. So now that we've done all of that, let's check our work. Let's see if it actually works. So we'll go to player test scene. We'll zoom out and we will go ahead and grab our magic potion and drag it over here. And also we don't really want that X to be there at all times. So let's go ahead and hide that. There we go. So now it's gone. And now that it exists, let's go ahead and hit play. And let's see if it even builds. It might not, to be honest with you. Great. So now if we run over to it, you'll see it has X. We leave, it goes away. Perfect. Now you'll notice that our little animation doesn't seem to be running. So let's see what we did wrong here. Because I didn't tell it to play. Dot play, and then we want it to play our little bounce animation. I believe we called it bounce. So we'll say bounce. Perfect. So that's how we get this to work, right? But we do have a bug here, right? If I bring this little magic potion down to this guy and I hit play, oh, it didn't work. There we go. So you see when the platform passed through it, you'll see that that X showed up. And that's a bug, right? We don't want it to show up if the player's not over it. So we need to detect if it's the player before we show the X. So let's come over here and say, hey, if body is player controller, then go ahead and do this little bit of code here. And do the same thing over here. There we are. And if we go ahead and play it, now when that platform runs through it, it's not going to actually affect the potion. You'll see it didn't affect it, but if I jump in there, it's there. Oh, I'm bad at my own game. Oh no. There we go. So you can see that if I jump into it, it works. Sweet. That's awesome. So let's drag this magic potion over here. So now it's back to where we were. And we should be good to go. Now you'll see that it's still not playing its animation. So we do have an error here. Player animation found, not found, bounce. I did not spell bounce correctly. So let's fix that. B-O-U-N-C-E, not B-O-U-C-E. There we go. Perfect. That looks good. All right. So now that we have that working, we need to allow the character to pick it up. So here's where that generic coding stuff I threw in at the beginning of this was. What we need to do is we need to go ahead and tell our magic potion to be pick upable, right? And it already is, right? It already is a pick upable object because we inherited it from pick upable. But we don't have the code here for player controller to handle that just yet. So let's go ahead and add that in. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to determine if the player can pick up an object. And I'm going to use, actually, I know we said X was the button that's going to be pressed, but we already have some code to interact with the NPC. And I think that if we're going to do pickups and stuff like that, we should probably make it all the same, right? So if we go back to our reference here, we actually have a section here that allows you to interact with the player or with the NPCs. So we should probably use that little bit of code. So let's go use that little bit of code. So if we come up here, it says, hey, if RayCast write is colliding, then show NPC dialog, right? Well, what we can do is we can actually kind of hijack this little bit of code and use our own little bit of magic to make it work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to, I'm actually going to come down to my show NPC dialog. And I think I'm going to change this to interact with item. We'll go ahead and rename that. So we're going to say if obj is pickupable, then I want to go ahead and do my item interaction. So what we'll say is if item is pickupable, else if is it an NPC? Whoops, I got rid of my code. There we are. Else if is it an NPC, right? What we can say now is if obj is magic potion, then magic potion is equal to obj as magic potion. And then now from here, we can go ahead and call some magic potion code, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go over to my magic potion and I'm going to add in a little bit of code to make our little magic potion work. So we'll say public void use potion. And we are going to go ahead and say game manager dot player dot. All right, I don't think our game manager actually has a global reference to players. So let's go check that out. I thought it did, but I don't remember. It's been a minute. It does not. So what I'm going to say is public static player controller player. And I'm going to capital P because it is a static. Now, some people do, if it's a global variable, they do like player. I'm going to stick with lowercase or capital P. I just prefer it that way. And we will go to our player controller and we will say game manager dot player is equal to this. And that will just go ahead and assign this to the game manager. So that way we have, you know, our stuff is all of our ducks are in a row, right? So we can now use our player anywhere in the code. So we're going to say game manager dot player dot update mana, and then we're going to go ahead and give it the magic gain amount. And then we need to go ahead and delete ourselves, so queue free. Awesome. So now if we come over here and we hit play, And in our case, we're going to have to hit enter. So we just run up to it and hit enter. And you'll notice that, well, nothing seems to happen, right? That's because our character is raycasting out, but it's not able to hit an area 2D. So we need to go into our player and allow it to hit area 2Ds. So if we come into our player, and we go ahead and go into our player scene, we grab our two raycasts left and right, we can actually tell it to collide with areas as well. So now we can actually collide with areas. So if we run over there now and we hit enter, you'll notice that again, it seems like it's doing nothing. Why is that? Well, let's take a look and see why it's doing that. So if we go into our player controller and we scroll down to wherever we're doing our stuff here, let's put a breakpoint here and here, and let's see if it's doing anything, if it's actually connecting with these objects. So let's go ahead and hit this, hit play in editor, and let's check what our breakpoints are doing. Hopefully we don't have any weird breakpoints sitting out there. We probably do. I think this one, yeah. I was going to say we probably have a few of them sitting out there. So let's do that. Any other ones? Awesome. Open up our project. We'll run over. We'll hit enter. And let's see if it hits anything. Yep, so it's hit something. It collided. Get collider, interact with item. That's good. Oh. I think it just lost connection to the server. So let's stop this. And let's put a breakpoint here. Let's come up here. Kill our two breakpoints. Play in editor. Let's see if I run up here and I hit enter. If object is pick upable, okay. So it's not a pick upable object. Interesting. Let me see. Oh, because we're pulling the area 2D. That would make sense because it's grabbing the area 2D. So what we're going to do to solve this is we're going to call for the owner of that object. And it's one of my favorite things, and I really should use it more often. But basically what you can do is you can call your object.owner, and that is your root of the scene of that object. So what we're going to do is we are going to call for the scene's owner. And what that means is we're literally going to call whatever object that owns this object, we're going to call that object. And it's a little easier if I show you. So let me come over here and I can show you. So our problem is that if we collide with this, it says area 2D, right? But we don't want that. And we can't just say parent because that's this. We can't just say parent, parent, because while that'll work here, it might not work in other projects, right? So what we can do instead is we can do what's called owner, and owner will fetch this node. Whatever is your base node of that object, it will fetch that node. And it's, in my opinion, one of the best ways of doing this. So what we'll do is we'll say obj.owner is pick upable, and we will say obj.owner is a magic potion and obj.owner as a magic potion. And that should solve our little problem that we're running into. So now let's go back here and actually, we can just do it in here. Play in editor. Let's walk through this real quick and see if it works. So we'll come over here. We'll hit X. Or I'm sorry, enter. I keep forgetting because I have the X prompt here, but we'll hit enter. We'll come over here and you'll see that we can flow right through it. We can go into our magic potion. And it's not happy with us because, of course, it's not. Why would it be? Sometimes walking through code in C# is funky. So we'll just go ahead and throw a breakpoint here. And we'll crash out our Godot engine. There we go, or at least our Godot project here. And then we'll go ahead and hit play again. It'll relaunch it, so that's good. So we'll come up here, hit enter. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and step over, hit play. And it didn't seem to call. Oh, that's because I didn't call it. Goodness. Potion dot. There we are. Goodness. Just full of mistakes today. All right. So let's go ahead and play that. If I run up to it, I hit X or enter. It'll say use potion. It updates my mana and then it Q freeze and you'll see that it's now gone. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. So now let's go ahead and minimize this real quick. And let's use some of our magic here. So watch our output over here. If we dash up or dash down, you'll see that we start going down. If I run up here and I hit enter, you'll see now I'm at 70. I was at 50, now I'm at 70. So perfect, that's working. That's exactly what we wanted. So now we just have one small bug that we got to figure out. And you'll notice if you mess around with it, you'll notice that there's a bug here. If I run just straight on top of it and I hit enter, it doesn't seem to work. Now, why is that? Raycast from the inside of an object, if that makes sense. Like if you're inside of an object and you're raycasting out, it's not going to collide properly. So what you need to do is you need to pull your raycasts and pull them in a little bit. So if we actually pull this inside like this, and we pull our raycast right inside a bit like that. There we go. And then we just go ahead and extend these a little bit. That should solve our problem, in theory at least. We'll see how it goes. And this one is slightly too large, so let's pull you back some. There we go. Make it so it's all in line. Now if we run up to it and we hit enter, it goes away. Perfect, that's what we wanted. And if we go ahead and we run up to it and we're inside of it, it allows us to pick it up. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. All right. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do, and I know this tutorial has been going on forever, and I'm sorry for that, but the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to add in some stamina and health bars. And this is kind of a long time coming, so we should definitely add them in. We're going to right-click on our interface manager, add in a child node, and we're going to add in a control node here. And then we're going to right-click on that, add in a child node, and add in a progress node. Now, the reason why we're adding in a control node is because that allows us to say main interface. All right, so we're going to grab our main interface. We're going to say layout, and we are going to do full rect. And that's going to make it the full size of our screen here. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our progress bar. We're going to go to layout, and we are going to say top right here. And we're going to resize this. We'll pull this back something about, I don't know, about yay big, give or take. And then we're going to go ahead and just call this health bar. And we are going to duplicate this, pull it down, and name it mana bar. All right. So now that we have that, we need to go ahead and go into our interface manager. If you remember way back in the day, we made a interface manager. So we need to open that up right here. Oops, I opened up the dialog manager, interface manager. There we go. Now we need to first get our objects. So we'll say public static progress bar, and we will say mana bar. We will say public static progress bar. Health bar. And then we're going to go ahead and get those nodes. So we'll say mana bar, health bar, and we will just say as progress bar. And we're going to say get node. Instead of dialog manager, we're going to go ahead and go out to our location. So we have main interface here. So we'll say main interface slash, whoops, not slash progress bar. Goodness. It's slash health bar, or slash mana bar, actually. Slash mana bar. And then we'll just go ahead and copy this so I don't have to retype it. And then we will say slash health bar. Awesome. So now that we have that, we need a way for us to update our health and update our mana, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add in some static functions here. So we'll say public static void update health. We'll pass in a, let's say, float, and we'll say max health, comma, and we'll pass in another float, call it health. And we are going to go ahead and say health bar dot value is equal to, and we're going to do a little bit of math here, okay? And I know math is terrifying. I hate math. So we'll say health divided by max health multiplied by health bar dot max value. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because it allows us to have a very flexible health bar. We could make our health bar 0 to 700. We could make our health bar 0 to 200, and it wouldn't matter. Our entire system would just work. Okay? And same thing with health versus max health. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm getting a percentage of what health is, of the max health, and then I'm multiplying it by our health bar. And I'm saying, hey, create this out of a normalized value and then multiply it by my max value. So that way I can guarantee that it's going to properly show up on my health bar or on my mana bar. That way, if I pick up like, let's say, a mana crystal, and it increases my total mana, I don't have to change this code. It just handles it. So that's the reason why I want to do it this way. So now we'll say public static void update mana, and we're going to go with float max mana, comma, float mana, and I'm just bumping all the keys today. Goodness. All right. So now we'll go mana bar dot max value is equal to mana divided by max mana multiplied by mana bar dot max value. And what that's going to do, again, is it's just going to set it up so that we can get away with just not needing to touch this ever again, basically. It's actually really useful. So from here, what we can do is we can go over to our player controller and add in that little bit of functionality. So if we go up to our physics process here, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say interface manager dot update mana, and I am going to make it my max mana, comma, mana. There we go. And that's just going to update it every single physics process. That mana is going to be updated. It's going to say, hey, are we good? Is it good? Does it feel good? How are we doing? Right? And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say interface manager dot update health, max health, comma, health. There we go. And the only other time that this would need to be updated, and it's mad at me, doesn't exist in current, no, it should exist in current context. Do I? Oh, I don't actually have a max health. So let's go ahead and do that. Max health is equal to 3 for right now, we'll say. And we are going to make that a capital. And we're going to change this to a float. I know it's going to break some of my code, but I want these to be floats for future stuff. If you know, if something does like 0.5 points of damage or something, I want to keep that in there. And we'll say max health and health. Why? There we go. Max health and health. There we go. So that'll work perfect. Now we need to also update it when the character gets hit. So we will say take damage. If player has greater than or equal to health, current health is this. And we'll go ahead and update their health right there. And if the player dies, we want to be able to reset their health, right? And if I remember correctly, we have a section here called respawn player. So we'll go ahead and set it in there as well. So now that we have it in our respawn player and in our take damage code, that will allow us to update our health. So now we should, in theory, be good, I think. Let's go ahead and hit play. Let's see what happens. I got a feeling that we're going to have a bug first, or maybe not. Okay. Not too bad. Our stamina, for some reason, is at 100. Let's see. I'm just chunking down our stuff. So you can see that it didn't update it properly. So that leads me to believe that something is wrong here. Update mana, max mana. Yup, interface manager. That's correct. My mana's correct. I know my mana's correct. Okay, so I figured out what I did wrong, and I feel really dumb, but the reason why this is broken is because if we go into our interface manager and we look at it, we say mana bar dot max value, not dot value, is equal to mana divided by max mana times mana bar dot max value. So that's my fault. So now if I come over here and I attempt to dash, you'll see that our stuff seems to work. So now when we start gaining our mana, you'll see it slowly starting to come back. Awesome. That's exactly what we wanted. So one of the coolest things is we could actually come in here now to kind of prove a little bit. Let's say this is end game. He has 100 mana is end game. If we actually come in here and we come up to our max mana on our player controller, if we change this max mana down to something like 10, and we change the mana to 10, okay, and we come over here and we dash, you'll see that it's 0. But you'll see that it reflows perfectly to being exactly what we want. So that's one of the coolest things about this system is that you can, it's flexible, right? So in the future, you could give him an addition, you just update that value to whatever you want, and we don't have to worry about changing these values anymore. You know, we could go in here, go into our player, and if I were to export the value, which I didn't export it, but if I were to export the value, I could just adjust this and it would dynamically update this value. So that's one of the powers of this system. So if I go in here and I change this back to 100 and 100 and I save it and I play, and we do 2 dashes, so dash up, dash down, dash up. We run up here, we hit enter. Now we're at 90. You see that? How that changed? Which is exactly what we want. So what did we do? See, it's at 60. We run over here, enter. Now we're at 80. So what did we do today? So what we did was we added in a pickup that allows them to pick it up and heal their mana. And the same thing goes for health potions. It's actually really easy. We can do that in the next video, maybe. And we added in the ability to see what our health and our mana is at. But that's really all I have for you guys today. So, hey, you know, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Hey, if you dislike this video, go ahead and hit that dislike button, because I am here to make content for you guys. As always, this series is a viewer suggested tutorial series. Everything in here is stuff that you guys have asked from me to be added to it. So please, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like me to cover in the future, put it in the comments below and I'm more than happy to get to it. And hey, if you have any questions about this, throw some comments down below or check out my link in the description below for my Discord. A lot of the guys over there are pretty cool and, you know, we'd love to hang out with you guys. But that is all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you all next time. Thanks.